Chapter 1376, Blood Sacrifice the Whole City. Blood sacrifice the whole city. These 4 words made Zhang Yi's back go cold when he heard them. What do you mean? Does it mean that the prince is getting married and we have to kill everyone in the Nash Kingdom? Flora nervously tugged at the corner of Zhang Yi's clothes and shook her head in panic, saying, "No, it's not the three-eyed clan that we have to kill, it's us humans." Zhang Yi had already seen the impatient members of the three-eyed clan in the Nash Kingdom grab the swords, guns, clubs, and cudgels in their hands and charge towards all parts of the city. They stooped down and searched everywhere for traces of humans. Those who had taken advantage of the prince's wedding to sneak out and watch the fun were unable to hide in time and were all killed mercilessly. Some members of the three-eyed clan even used special tools, which were long and thin, similar to fishing guns. One shot was just enough to pierce a human's body. Then they would string the human on the gun like a skewer and continue hunting for the next human. The entire Nash Kingdom was in a state of desolate excitement. Zhang Yi frowned and hurriedly protected the flower, hiding in a place where he would not be discovered. He then asked, "What the hell is going on?" "Don't be afraid, I'm here, no one will hurt you." Flora was pale and trembling. After Zhang Yi's comforting words, she slowly spoke, "Every once in a while, Nash Kingdom cleanses the humans in the city. Usually it's either when the humans reproduce too quickly and the population becomes uncontrollable, or when there's a major holiday. This ritual is called the blood sacrifice of the whole city by humans. On this day, all humans in the Nash Kingdom are no longer protected and can be abused and killed at will." Zhang Yi was a little surprised. "Oh? Do you still receive protection during the rest of the year?" Flora shook her head. "Wild humans have no human rights, but some humans who need to provide labor for them will receive some protection." Zhang Yi took a deep breath. "How long has this situation continued?" "I don't know, it's been around since I was born. I've only experienced it twice, and this is the second time." In shadow space, Zhou Qi, the biology expert, gave her opinion. "This is to control the human population. Humans are too adaptable to the environment, just like cockroaches, and it's simply impossible to completely eradicate them. So they will periodically carry out cleanups, and there will always be humans who can survive." Zhang Yi slowly narrowed his eyes as he hugged Flora and listened to the screams of his kind. "Just as I thought, the big one is coming." He had been considering how to create chaos in the Nash Kingdom and lure out the enemy's high-level combatants. Now, wasn't this the opportunity he had been waiting for? A blood sacrifice for the entire city, with the entire Nash Kingdom joining forces to cleanse the humans. Then the hundreds of elite members of the Undertaker's team and others could not possibly hide, and conflict would inevitably arise. Zhang Yi thought for a moment, and said to Hua, "I will send you to a safe place, where there will be only people like you." Flora was full of surprise. "Is it the temple of the human god religion?" Zhang Yi nodded with a smile, and then he told Mu Yan to open the entrance to shadow space and release Hua inside. Afterwards, Zhang Yi instructed Zhou Qi and the others to take good care of her for a while. As soon as she entered shadow space, Flora looked around with surprise and curiosity at the strange-looking humans around her. There were Zhang Yi's team members, and there were also Pachi's personal soldiers led by Zhangda. Her eyes gradually brightened. "The messenger of the human god religion has come to save us." Nash Secondary School. Zhang Yi stood high above, overlooking the Nash Kingdom built in the middle of a huge abyss. At this time, it would not be an exaggeration to describe the scene here as hell on earth. The three-eyed clan was going mad, hunting and killing the humans here. They hacked open every cave in the ground, even breaking down walls and tearing down beams and pillars in order to capture humans. In their eyes, humans were like rats, good at hiding. But at the same time, humans were a rare delicacy in their eyes, and in normal times, only the aristocrats of the upper class in the Nash Kingdom could enjoy this delicacy. A human on the black market can even be exchanged for a dwarf slave, the creature that carries Janajuo's sedan chair. It is full of strength and is most suitable for manual labor, but its meat is sour and astringent, so basically no one eats it. Zhang Yi silently watched everything that was happening in the city. He knew that unrest had already begun, so he simply added fuel to the fire. He took out a sniper rifle from dimensional space, not Thunderstrike, but a silenced sniper rifle. Thunderstrike was too powerful, and the silencer could not completely block its roar. And there was no need to use Thunderstrike against ordinary three-eyed clans. He stood high in the air, sat up the sniper, and began hunting those from the three-eyed clan. His target was very simple: any three-eyed clan member that appeared in his field of vision could be killed. Although these creatures also had a civilization, they were not the same as humans, so he did not feel the slightest psychological burden when killing them. Puff! 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 He was extremely fast when changing bullets, and all the bullets entered the heads of the three-eyed clan. The tiny bullets were as thin as embroidery needles and as small as ant eggs compared to the huge bodies of the three-eyed clan. However, they were all poison-tipped. The poison was originally designed to kill by blocking the blood supply, but since the three-eyed clan were so large, it took a while for the poison to take effect. Because of this, the three-eyed clan who were shot only felt as if their heads had been bitten by something, and they didn't care at all. Instead, they continued to go hunting for humans with excitement. However, in less than 30 seconds, the toxins in their blood will begin to spread, and they will quickly lose their lives. Gradually, there were more and more members of the three-eyed clan falling to the ground on the streets. Boom! 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 One by one, their bodies fell like small mountains. At first, no one paid any attention to them, thinking that they had just fallen over in their haste. After all, they were only hunting a group of mice, so how could anyone die? But gradually, someone finally noticed something was wrong. Because more and more people were falling over, and when they turned them over, they discovered they were all dead. Aha! A woman who had been hunting with a frying pan let out a terrified scream. What's going on? Why is someone dead? Could it be those hairless mice? Impossible. How could such weak things dare to resist? They wouldn't have the ability to kill us humans. Before the man could finish speaking, he felt a sharp pain in his temple, as if he had been pricked by a needle. He reached up to feel it, and a trace of blood appeared on his hand. He didn't pay much attention to it, and as he was about to walk forward, he just stumbled a few steps, and then his vision went completely dark, and he collapsed to the ground with a loud thud. Chapter 1377, Humans vs. the Three-Eyed Clan. In the Nash Kingdom, the war between humans and the Three-Eyed Clan had begun. But strictly speaking, it should be the war between the outsiders, such as Zhang Yi, and the Three-Eyed Clan, that has begun. The local humans have lost the courage to resist. After years of being preyed upon, and given the huge size difference, they simply don't dare to resist. Even if they are caught in the hands of the Three-Eyed Clan, they will only tremble and dare not even open their mouths to take a bite. However, Zhang Yi, Undertaker, Gao Changkong, and the Knights of the Round Table were exceptions. They had enough power to fight these giants. Fierce conflicts broke out all over the Nash Kingdom. Not only was Zhang Yi fighting, but so were the others. There was just a clear difference between them. Zhang Yi had the ability to snipe from a long distance and the ability to move nimbly. The people he killed never knew where their killer was. Zhang Yi treats all members of the Three-Eyed Clan equally, and never differentiates between them based on their strength, gender, or age. He kills all Three-Eyed Clan members he sees, without any mercy or kindness. From the moment he saw them feeding on humans, Zhang Yi understood that the two races could not coexist in harmony. This had nothing to do with justice or morality, it was simply a fight for survival. Zhang De and the others could see everything outside in shadow space. Zhang De said to Zhang Yi, "Your Excellency, please let us go out and fight too." They were the Paji family's most elite warriors, which was why they were able to go into the abyss with Zhang Yi. Even facing those powerful soldiers of the Three-Eyed Clan, they were still capable of fighting. However, Zhang Yi resolutely refused them. "If you go out now, you'll only cause me trouble. Don't worry, there will be a time for you to play your part." Even Zhang Yi himself did not use his full strength, as he was testing the Nash Kingdom's capabilities. As for the cannon fodder like Zhangde, they were basically disposable consumables, to be used to create chaos when the situation called for it. Of course, they had to be used sparingly. Upon hearing this, Zhangde and the others felt that Zhang Yi was worried that they would be in danger, and they were filled with gratitude. Zhang Yi didn't care about that. He was having a great time killing at this time, with one shot being a headshot. Plus, he was extremely stealthy, so even if the powerful people of the Nash Kingdom noticed something was wrong, they couldn't find his location. Elsewhere, Zhang Yi sensed the presence of the Undertaker and the others. After all, when their supernatural powers erupted, the power was too obvious. The Undertaker, Gao Changkong, and Lancelot and the other members of the Knights of the Round Table were forced into a fierce battle with the mutants of the Nash Kingdom. Only Zhang Yi did not face his enemies head-on at all, but silently killed the members of the Three-Eyed Clan one by one from a high place. Civilians, soldiers, men, women, the elderly, children, everyone was killed with a single bullet. Soon, the number of people who died at his hands exceeded 1,000. Moreover, he was very careful, shooting a few times and changing locations, not concentrating on hunting in one place, which also avoided the danger of being discovered by the powerful of the Nash Kingdom. Compared to Zhang Yi's carefree side, the other teams were not as comfortable at this time. Originally, they were also lurking in the Nash Kingdom, preparing to take action when the opportunity arose. However, once the blood sacrifice began throughout the city, the entire population of Nash Kingdom would search high and low, greedily looking for those delicious pieces of meat. Now, they had no choice but to take action. In particular, the Sangha Temple's monk soldiers, who already regarded the Nash Kingdom as the devil, were filled with hatred. When they saw them slaughtering humans, they chose to take the initiative. Wars broke out in various places. Although they were not dominant in terms of body size, the powerful mutants were able to slaughter many Nash people thanks to their supernatural powers and superior weapons. The Nash Kingdom, on the other hand, did not seem to expect a counterattack from the humans, and in a short period of time, they lost many of their people and soldiers. The news quickly reached the Holy Spirit Temple. In the palace, sitting on the throne was a very young-looking member of the Three-Eyed Clan. He had a somewhat delicate appearance, with long, sharp eyes. A green tail casually rested on the armrest, and he rested his side face in one hand, quietly listening to the report of his subordinates. This time, the entire city was the site of a blood sacrifice, and our people were attacked by the hairless rats. Some of these rats were strange, wearing well-made armor and carrying weapons that were quite lethal. They caused quite a few casualties among our soldiers. Beneath the throne, a soldier commander knelt on the ground, his head buried low, reporting the situation to the prince on the throne, Nash Anlet. His huge body cast a large shadow in the palace, but even with his head buried, he didn't look much shorter than Prince Anlet. This prince of the Nash Kingdom was quite a bit shorter than the average member of the Three-Eyed Clan, only about 5 meters tall. But his body was more slender and well-proportioned, not as burly as the commander under the throne, but had a kind of natural beauty. The royal bloodline of the Nash Kingdom had extremely distinctive characteristics. They are born with smaller bodies and greater strength. No one dares to underestimate them because of their size. Especially this Prince Anlet, who has shown his formidable talent since birth. At the age of just 7, he defeated many of his martial arts teachers and became a powerful and famous martial artist in the Nash Kingdom. Anlet listened quietly to the report of the soldier commander, but in his hand he was playing with a black combat suit. His gaze was cold, as if he was born without any expression on his face. His eyes showed a hint of interest in the strange and exquisite parts of the combat suit. He ignored the commander kneeling below and looked at the old man with silver hair and a slightly stooped figure standing in the other direction. "Sage, have you heard of this hairless rat?" The sage, the most knowledgeable person in the entire Nash Kingdom, was in charge of the National Library and knew a lot of untold history and learning. Hearing Prince Anlet's question, he lowered his head and replied, "Your Highness, many years ago, these hairless mice served us, asking for our strength while offering their flesh and loyalty, and we granted them the power of the Three-Eyed Clan. They learned to fight with weapons and have remained our servants ever since. It's just that." He raised his reading glasses and stared intently at the battle suit in Prince Anlet's hand. Then he shook his head and said, "There's never been any mention of such a thing in the books. I'll have to go back and check the books carefully to see if I've missed anything." Prince Anlet played with the small battle uniform, which was even smaller than a baby's onesie. "Oh, go ahead and take your time checking. I'm very interested in these guys." After saying this, he waved his hand at the soldier commander below. "It's time for my wedding, and the city must be stabilized as soon as possible. Go and get General Qinling Duhan to come here, and have him deal with those hairless rats." Chapter 1378, The Giant Legion. After giving his orders, Prince Anlet stood up from his throne and walked towards the back. The eunuch by his side hurriedly said, "Your Highness Anlet, Lady Janajuo is waiting for you." Anlet glanced at him coldly and said indifferently, "It doesn't matter, let her keep waiting. Anyway, I just need a woman to make me king." He walked with an elegant gait towards the upper levels of the Holy Spirit Temple. "Once I have absorbed the divine substance, I will become a martial artist of the same level as the ancestors recorded in history books. At that time," he looked up and glanced at the high dome, "I will ascend to the world beyond the dome and see what the heavens and earth there are like." The eunuch bowed flatteringly and said, "Your Highness Anlet, you will be the greatest king in the kingdom of Nash in 1,000 years." Anlet walked along the corridor back to the top floor of the Holy Spirit Temple. After pushing open a huge bronze door, dazzling red light entered his eyes. On a huge altar, a red gemstone was floating in midair, its vigorous power causing Anlet's eyes to sparkle. "Is this the legendary spirit of sacrifice? I thought it only existed in ancient history books and was something from mythology. I never imagined it would actually appear." The eunuch said, "The sage said that countless eons ago, our ancestors relied on it to establish the Nash Kingdom. Your Highness, please rest assured that the harmful substances within it have been stripped out. It seems to have been very effective on the servants who have been serving us, so the king has ordered that they be rewarded." Anlet looked at the huge red gem in front of him with an obsessive gaze. He raised his hand and, before he could touch the gem, he already felt an immeasurable power. The next moment, his expression returned to its usual cold indifference. He then turned to the eunuch and said, "Go. No one is to disturb me until I have absorbed the spirit of sacrifice, no matter what happens outside." A cold light flashed in his eyes. "Anyone who dares to disturb me will be executed." The eunuch swallowed hard, for the words of this cold-blooded and powerful prince were never a joke. "Yes, Your Highness." "No, my king." The eunuch took a step back, leaving the hall, and the massive bronze doors slowly and heavily closed behind him. In the Nash Middle School, the battle between humans and the Three-Eyed Clan became increasingly fierce. For the first time, the Three-Eyed Clan, who usually regarded humans as livestock, suffered a strong backlash. They were caught off guard, as if humans were being attacked by mice in an organized manner. But even mice, if they fight back with a death wish, can also inspire fear in people. The monk soldiers led by Undertaker, the Garuda tribe led by Gao Chang Kong, and the Knights of the Round Table led by Lancelot all clashed head-on with the Three-Eyed Clan. In the shadows was a sinister second person, Zhang Yi, who shot one child after another and slipped away after killing them, without even anyone being able to see his shadow. Those who came here were all the most elite troops currently available to mankind, and their combat effectiveness and weapons were far superior to ordinary soldiers. After learning about the characteristics of the Three-Eyed Clan, they quickly gained the upper hand in the battlefield. After all, they were wearing cutting-edge combat suits and had all kinds of heat weapons in their hands. Their enemies, on the other hand, were mostly Three-Eyed Clan members armed with primitive weapons such as swords, spears, clubs, and sticks. A counter-slaughter began. On the side of the Knights of the Round Table, La Men's private soldiers and mercenaries wore smiles of satisfaction on their faces, their expressions grim. They felt a sense of pride as they watched the giants running around, driven by their weapons. Ha ha ha. These guys are no different from humans except that they're bigger. What underground tribe? They're just primitive people, kill them. Having seen the Three-Eyed Clan's cruelty in hunting humans, they showed no mercy in their actions. No matter how huge the Three-Eyed Clan was, they would quickly be shot to pieces when facing a dozen of the most advanced assault rifles. Boom! 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 One after the other, the bodies of the Three-Eyed Clan fell to the ground like a small mountain. The streets were full of fleeing Three-Eyed Clan members, their eyes filled with fear. They couldn't understand why a group of hairless mice would dare to resist their hunting and even kill them. On the other side, a mutant had already jumped onto the high roof and started setting fires in the city. The buildings here were still built in the primitive way, mainly with stone, wood and straw. Once the flames rose, they quickly caught fire and spread rapidly to both sides of the street. Time and time again, the entire street was engulfed in flames, and the screams of the Three-Eyed Clan were unceasing. There was no mercy to be shown, and there was no talk of sparing anyone's life out of pity. This was a battle between two clans, a blood feud that had lasted for thousands of years. Once the doors to the Demon Kingdom opened, it was destined that only one side could survive. Otherwise, sooner or later, they will also follow the doors of the Demon Kingdom to the Snowy region. By then, the Snowy region will also face an abyss of horror and despair. Kill! 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 Everyone was blood-red with rage, and even the Sangha Temple's monk soldiers, in the name of their faith, began to kill in an open and just manner. And just as they were killing and setting fire to everything, enjoying the destruction, the earth beneath their feet suddenly shook. One of the soldiers trembled, and when he looked at the bottom of his feet, he suddenly noticed that the dust on the ground was quivering in a regular rhythm, and even the blood pool formed by the blood of the Three-Eyed Clan next to it was constantly sending ripples out. He subconsciously looked up and ahead. Behind the scarlet blood and fire, huge black monsters appeared one after the other. They were a group of monsters that were visibly a size larger than the average Three-Eyed Clan. They were holding slender, gun-shaped weapons of a standardized design in their hands, clad in pitch-black metal armor, and marching in unison towards the street. The army of the Nash Kingdom had finally arrived. The Nash Kingdom, with a population of several 100,000, only had a standing army of 5,000 soldiers, but each of these 5,000 soldiers was a powerful combatant, with physical fitness and combat effectiveness far surpassing the average Three-Eyed Clan. There were only a few hundred soldiers on this street. Seeing their own countrymen being chased by a group of hairless rats, these soldiers of the Three-Eyed Clan were furious. One soldier of the Three-Eyed Clan raised his spear and aimed it at the human soldier in front of him, who was still in a daze. Whoosh! A cold light shot out of the muzzle, and the next moment it pierced his neck. Chapter 1379 General Nash Kingdom, Chili Duhan. The soldier from the Three-Eyed Clan was using a spear-like device. A long hook with barbs shot out of the muzzle and pierced the soldier's neck. Then, with the flick of a switch, the hook flew back with his corpse. This was a weapon specially designed for hunting humans. In a situation like this, a sword, spear, club, or stick with a big opening was not as useful as this. The human soldiers realized that the real test had just begun. Professional armies are completely unmatched in combat effectiveness and equipment by ordinary people. Kill! At this moment, there was no need for words. Both sides wanted to take the other's life. The two armies, large and small, charged towards each other. As a result of the direct head-on collision, the elite soldiers on the human side suffered heavy casualties. Just as Zhang Yi had seen earlier, although the human weapons were sophisticated, the soldiers who could not carry heavy weapons could not pierce the primitive metal armor of the three-eyed clan soldiers with the firearms in their hands. At most, the bullets hit their knees, making them unable to stand upright from the pain. However, every three-eyed clan soldier was equivalent to a mutant with a supernatural ability index of over 3,000 points. Not to mention that there were also warriors with supernatural abilities among them. In terms of their physical fitness, and with their supernatural powers, their strength has increased by several levels. The human soldiers, although no less numerous than the other side, were routed as soon as the fighting started. The ordinary soldiers were treated like mice, skewered on a skewer. Only the powerful mutants were able to put up a desperate resistance with their abilities. Lancelot and the others, who were high above the battlefield and watching it coldly, frowned. These guys are really useless. I thought they could create some chaos and attract the strong from the Nash Kingdom. I didn't expect that they couldn't even defeat the average soldier. Mordred, the rebel knight, frowned and said with disdain. Galahad, the guardian knight, a burly uncle in his 40s, laughed as he crossed his arms. After all, there is a huge difference in body size. Fortunately, this country is sparsely populated, otherwise, I dare not imagine. If their population had been 1/10 that of humans, they would have easily destroyed any civilization in the world. Mordred turned his head to look at the leader of the group, Lancelot, the Knight of Judgment. Deputy Captain, these idiots are about to die off. Do you think we should save them? Bowser, the Green Knight, looked at Mordred mockingly and said, "Since when have you cared about the lives of these people?" Mordred was a little annoyed. There are some things that these muggles still need to do, or do we just go and attack the palace in the sky? Lancelot finally spoke. You're right, creating chaos and looking for a chance to enter the Holy Spirit Temple is what we need to do most at the moment. He looked up at the huge palace beneath the dome. A strong intuition told him that there must be something he wanted in this trip. That feeling was the same as when he first entered Atlantis. Let's do it. Clean this place up, Lancelot said. The members of the Knights of the Round Table around him had indifferent or cruel smiles on their faces, and they all leapt down. Finally, they could strike as much as they liked. The soldiers of the Three-Eyed Clan were still happily capturing the humans in front of them. Suddenly, they felt the movement of their feet become heavy, as if something had wrapped around their calves, making their movements difficult. Looking down, they saw that the entire street had, at some point, turned into a huge swamp, and their heavy bodies slowly sank in. What is this? The soldiers of the Three-Eyed Clan hurriedly struggled with all their might, but the harder they struggled, the faster they sank in. Mordred watched them from a distance, laughing coldly. The deeper someone is in the swamp, the faster they will sink if they struggle. This was his ability, Muddy Swamp, the ability to turn any scene into a swamp. The soldiers of the Three-Eyed Clan suddenly encountered this ability, and for a time, they struggled desperately. Boom! At this moment, a series of explosions suddenly came from the huge houses on both sides of the street. From the blazing walls, huge trees suddenly sprouted. Bowser, the Green Knight, is a rare ability user in the trait system and plant ability system, and can summon huge trees to fight. A white figure leapt from the sky, quickly stepping on the trees and streaking past the Three-Eyed Clan soldiers. Swish! The white light was blinding, cutting through space with fierce precision. Pop! 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 The huge heads of a dozen soldiers of the Three-Eyed Clan flew high into the air, blood spurting into the sky. At the other end of the street, Lon Malak, a shining knight in a white combat uniform, landed gracefully. He pointed his western sword at the ground, and a drop of blood slowly dripped from it. The addition of the Knights of the Round Table quickly tipped the balance of the battle in favor of the humans. After all, the Knights of the Round Table were now able to represent the higher standard of human combat teams. The three-eyed clan soldiers who had been killed saw the situation was not good, and someone immediately took out a signal bullet and released it into the sky. The yellow fireworks were particularly dazzling in the purple night sky. The three-eyed clan soldiers, who were still searching for human soldiers in the nearby streets, immediately sped up and rushed over here. However, ordinary soldiers, and even some powerful mutants who came here, quickly became the corpses of the Knights of the Round Table. The streets were ablaze, and the huge corpses of the soldiers of the three-eyed clan filled the roads. Among them were many powerful generals. Lancelot trampled on their corpses, but his gaze was always fixed on the Holy Spirit Temple. Still no movement in the Holy Spirit Temple? Shouldn't we send someone powerful to deal with it? It seemed to be echoing his words. At the end of the street, a pair of black military boots slowly appeared. Bang! 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 The sound of footsteps seemed to strike fear into everyone's heart. Lancelot looked up, his gaze defiant and cold. Around the corner on the second floor, they saw a pale face and a pair of dark eyes. It was a huge member of the three-eyed clan, standing over 20 meters tall. Even compared to other members of his species, he was nearly twice as tall. However, his appearance was not ugly, and even if judged by human aesthetics, he could be called handsome. His fair and handsome face had skin as pale as albinism, and long silver hair that reached his waist. He was not wearing the black iron armor of the soldiers of the three-eyed clan. Instead, he was topless and wearing a long cloak. He was dragging a huge two-handed battle sword behind him on the street with his right hand, making a harsh grinding sound and spitting sparks. That sword was more of a pillar than a sword, except that the edges had been slightly polished thinner. But no one doubts that when it slashes a person, the person will either be cut in half or smashed to a pulp. Nash Kingdom Royal Guard General Qinling, reporting for duty. Chapter 1380, Lancelot vs. Qinling Duhan. Qinling Duhan's appearance made everyone at the scene feel an inexplicable sense of oppression. Perhaps this is the unique sense between the strong, that kind of momentum, not something that can be possessed by ordinary people. Of course, except for a certain guy who has always strived to be harmless. Qinling Duhan stood on the street, like a giant statue. He coldly surveyed the large number of dead bodies of soldiers from the three-eyed clan on the ground, and then looked at the members of the Knights of the Round Table standing on top of the bodies, frowning with some disgust. Among the worms, have some powerful individuals actually been born? I've always said that these ugly creatures should be killed off and not allowed to survive. Qinling Duhan raised the giant sword in his hand and swung it directly forward with cold indifference. This sword stroke was unremarkable, without any resplendent supernatural light shining from it, but it caused a terrifying sonic boom, and the air was swept up in a mighty wind, blowing the surrounding houses flying to the sides. The power of a single sword stroke was terrifying. Lancelot's face immediately turned solemn, but there was an unmistakable gleam of joy in his eyes. Finally, someone with some actual strength, ha! He let out a long howl, and a long, black sword suddenly appeared in his right hand. Black flames curled up from his feet, spiraling up into the air, enveloping his entire body like a hellish demon. The knight longsword swung both hands, and it collided with the giant sword, which was several times larger than Lancelot himself. Boom! The overwhelming power exploded violently in all directions, pushing the houses in the surrounding streets and knocking them flying in all directions. Even the members of the Knights of the Round Table turned pale and fled the area as soon as possible. Qinling Duhan, General of the Nash Kingdom, top martial artist, supernatural ability index 19,000 points. Lancelot, Deputy Captain of the Knights of the Round Table Knight of Judgment, has an ability index of 18,000 points. The members of the Knights of the Round Table quickly fled the area, as it was impossible for them to intervene in the battle between the two powerful individuals. What's more, at this time, the men under the command of Qinling Duhan had already surrounded the area. The centurion, who was over 10 meters tall, wearing silver armor and carrying a giant battle axe, walked slowly, spitting out a wave of scorching air from his nose. Time to exterminate the insects. On this battlefield, the mutant of the Nash Kingdom's Epsilon level finally made his appearance. The subordinates on both sides also began to fight fiercely. But the real deciding factor was naturally the battle between Qinling Duhan and Lancelot. Qinling Duhan had a cold expression on his face as he looked at the tiny Lancelot, as if he were looking down on an insect. But even for a bug, he showed no mercy in his attack. His huge battle sword swept halfway across the sky, the terrifying sonic boom could shatter human eardrums, and the sweeping earth and rocks pierced the sky. Lancelot leaped up, avoiding his attack, and landed above the ruins. If you look closely, you can see a trace of blood overflowing from the corner of his mouth. It was just a head-on collision, and Qinling Duhan's powerful strength made him bleed from the mouth. The Three-Eyed Clan's innate physical strength is beyond that of humans, and Lancelot paid the price for it. But there was no fear on his face, only a bright look of excitement. He was a born warrior who loved nothing more than to fight powerful opponents. And this was the first time in his life that he had fought head-on with a mysterious race from the underworld. This feeling of exhilaration from the bottom of his heart, mixed with a hint of trepidation, made him so excited that he almost wanted to shout it out. "Bug, who gave you permission to look down on me?" Qinling Duhan looked at him coldly, and the battle sword struck again, easily flattening the ruins in front of him with a single stroke. The raging wind stirred because of his sword, and the air current wrapped around Lancelot, making it difficult for him to keep his feet on the ground. But he still forced his feet into the ground, leaving 2 deep grooves. Conqueror, Glade. The shield of protection, Glade, appeared in his left hand, while the black sword of conquest, Conqueror, was in his right. This was one of his abilities, sword and shield. As a knight, this symbolized conquest and protection, and was his glory. As the name suggests, Conqueror had powerful killing power, while Glade had extremely strong defensive power, able to absorb frontal attack power to the greatest extent. Facing the huge white giant before him, Lancelot laughed loudly and charged towards him. It was like an ant charging at a giant, but this ant was incredibly fast. Even Qinling Duhan frowned, furious but not daring to let his guard down. He understood that this insect in front of him was extraordinary, and was definitely not comparable to the insects in the Nash Kingdom that only knew to steal food from the trash can. Boom! 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 His giant sword slashed down like a hurricane, the sword energy enveloping all the surrounding space, and even the pressure of the sword wind caused the ground to crumble inch by inch. At the same time, his large feet also mercilessly stomped down, trying to stomp Lancelot flat with one kick. Lancelot's gaze became deeper and deeper. "Is this what hell looks like?" "My lord, I have seen the hell you prophesied." Dark flames rose from the 666 tattoo on his right cheek. Endless flames spread like a black storm around Qinling Duhan. Fallen sky ember flames. Lancelot believed in Satan and hell, and the flames he used were also the flames of hell that could burn a person's soul. In the face of all this, Qinling Duhan's face remained unshaken. It seemed that all kinds of complex illusions were produced in the midst of the blazing black flames, allowing him to see incredible things. But his eyes remained resolute, and he just swung his sword downwards towards Lancelot. Humans on the ground have had all kinds of convenient services since birth. If you want to travel, you can take a car. If you want to hunt, you can use a pistol. The people of the Nash Kingdom, however, still live in a primitive way. They worship strength and believe that absolute power is the most important thing in the world. Therefore, Qinling Duhan has been swinging his sword every day since he was old enough to understand. He is a cold killing machine. The leaping Lancelot is just a fancy bug in his eyes, unable to influence his mind in the slightest. The giant sword slashes, sweeps, pokes, and slashes, simple and unadorned, but each move is extremely deadly. Lancelot only needs to be hit once. Even if he is wearing the highest level of combat suit, his body will be smashed to pieces. Even if he brushes against it, parts of his body will rot into a pulp. Qili Duhan, who has an absolute advantage in strength, doesn't bother with fancy fighting styles. One force defeats 10, it's the simplest and most powerful Tao.